if Microsoft started a 10-year plan to migrate Windows users over to ReactOS,
Oh,
the
wow.
open source Windows clone, and discontinue Windows, what do you think the general outcome would be in the end?
Confusion. Honestly, if I was to pick one, I think for the general populace, utter and complete confusion. They want us to do what now? Martha, I'm not. Am I going to be able to get my solitaire on that? I mean, you're going to have that side of it, and then you're also going to have the development side of it. They're like, I think there's going to be some skepticism. I think at the very least.
Yeah, skepticism to be
That's
sure.
being very kind. I think mostly confusion, probably amongst everybody. I know I'd certainly be mystified, but
I think
yeah,
the idea has merit, though. Like, okay,
it's an interesting idea.
Okay. So just clear our minds for a moment and think about this.
Short trip.
You're Satya Nadella. You're like, what am I going to do? I've got Microsoft here and Windows 10. It keeps getting met with mixed reviews. You know what I mean? And everyone's like, oh, remember when Windows was fast? Oh, remember when Windows had a start menu? What if you at Microsoft started up a team, and that team's job was to take ReactOS, keep it open source, work with the community, beef it up so its compatibility with, say, Windows XP applications like Win32 API and whatnot was just perfect.
Right.
Poured over official versions of DirectX and Direct3D, maybe some of the WPL stuff, all the things needed to make kind of modern Windows apps. Bring it over on top of that. Make an official Microsoft theme that looks like Windows 2000. It is classic Windows shell Explorer.exe start menu, blah, 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 right?
2000 Pro was not bad. I will say that.
I would like to point out that is the only version of Windows I actually worked on. I worked on NT5 before it got renamed to Windows 2000.
It felt like an adult operating system out of the various versions of Windows. It felt like
you're welcome.
Yeah.
So take that and release it and call it and make it free. Call it Windows Classic, right? Or like a Windows Forever, like fast, and port over the current modern driver stack and then let it be. And so people can run the vast majority of games on it, high performance, low memory footprint, just this massive fast system. Then Microsoft can take that high performance system and release that as their embedded system, release that as a free system to get third world nations running on older computers with high levels of compatibility. Microsoft would win huge PR boon benefits for being really receptive in open source. I mean, if we're talking about how Microsoft could win over the open source crowd, this would friggin' do it. And then they could go forward and base all the future stuff on top of that kernel. So in the future, if they came out with Windows 11 or Windows 10 Extreme Edition, it's really just a user experience that they slap on top of this version of ReactOS. Honestly, it could cut down on their overall development overhead and save them money. It would win them kudos and actual trust in the open source community. It would win them huge brownie points in developing nations and with those governments, because it would just be this free system that was available to them. And it's probably the only thing they could ever possibly do to get people like me or Matt at least willing to put Microsoft Windows on our computer again. And I don't know if I even would at that point, but that's the only thing that I would consider it. I would at least consider it if I had a fully open source operating system that basically was compatible with just every Windows thing out there with maybe a few minor exceptions. I'd be like, oh, well, that's at least worth it. I'm definitely at least putting that in a virtual machine or something. Like, that's actually kind of cool.
I like the idea. I think what we first have to do is get Microsoft to understand there is an issue. This has always been their problem. And this isn't a derogatory statement. This is a truth that most companies in general have, especially in marketing departments. They don't really realize that there's a problem. So they may be like, well, that sounds great, guys, but we're pretty happy with our current product. We think it's awesome that you have stuff you don't want in your menu. And and we like the idea that on non-enterprise versions, we're going to go ahead and reboot you. oh, you're working on
Right.
homework. That sucks. Hope you backed it up in something besides Microsoft product. So I think they first have to identify the fact that maybe their approach isn't really that great. Maybe there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Just saying. And I'm going to assume that is. I don't think there's someone that sits up in Snake Mountain dressed up like Skeletor coming up with new and crazy software ideas. I don't think that's happening unless Beastman's handling some of the ribbon GUI, which I do believe is a thing. I think Beastman's absolutely responsible for that.
Ant-Man.
Yep.
Ant-Man did that.
No.
Man of War?
Or Merman. But
Merman?
Scary looking. But I think if they could address that, I think we would get really far, because then they would open themselves up to ideas like that. But I don't think we can get them off the denial train.
Though? Wouldn't it be just amazing? Like, I mean, that would be truly and wickedly interesting. And then, you know what? They could go back in time and say all these old applications that they don't use anymore, from XP, Windows 2000, even Windows 98, 98 second edition. I mean, all these different applications, all the various apps, they could just be like, well, you know what? Let's just open source this version of Notepad and that version of Paint and all these random little apps. And let's just donate them to this ReactOS project, release it with it, and it's Windows Classic. It's basically all the best parts that Windows has ever had, all cobbled together into one open source lightweight system, and just release it. And offer support package, just like Red Hat does.
There you go.
Say, here you go. Here's a $30 a year support package, so you can call Microsoft for support, so they can charge for support, but give the rest away for free. And then maybe have like a premium version with, like, I don't know, licensed codecs and fonts and whatnot that people can buy and pay for. I don't know, something like that.
That would be interesting. I mean, because honestly, it wouldn't appeal to me per se, but I'd run it to try it because I think it'd be interesting. But I think for people that are not necessarily Linux people, they just try Linux because they're tired of Microsoft stuff.
Yeah.
This would be kind of a big deal. I think people would be like double taking on that. They'd be like, hey, wait a minute. That's kind of nice.
Right. I mean, if I was Microsoft, I'd give it a go. This clip of the Lunduke Show is brought to you in part by Purism. They make laptops filled with free software, good feelings, and hardware kill switches to protect your privacy. Find out more at Purism, PURI.SM. Every patron of the Lunduke Show gets access to full-length DRM-free video downloads and MP3 audio versions of each and every show with handy-dandy RSS feeds. Find out more at patreon.com/Brian Lunduke.